Senate confirms the appointment of service chiefs as Nigeria's security challenges becomes a national priority. Hope is rising for Nigerians as President Bola Tinubu's request for more monies to provide palliatives gets the approval of the National Assembly. And later on the program,
what I'm expecting from them is to dominate the theater of war, so that there is no going to be any resurgence.
Senator Mohammed Moguno from Borno State will join me later to talk about the task ahead of the newly appointed service chiefs. You're watching the Halo Chambers on TVC News. I am Tijesu Adiri. The Senate has approved President Bola Tinubu's request to amend the appropriation bill to allow the issuance of 819.5 billion naira from the 2022 supplementary budget to fund palliatives that will cushion the impact of the hardship caused by fuel subsidy removal. The Senate also considered and approved the President's request for $800 million to finance the National Safety Net program.
The result of the pain they are now, even though, well, we might say it's pain, but in the long run, it's going to be something that's beneficial. And I'll begin to see it because more money is now coming to the coffers of government that will be used in executing capital projects all over the country. So I call on my colleagues to support this. But
the bill was amended in its entirety, but majorly to get the 500 billion to provide palliatives for Nigerians in as a result of the reform being introduced by this administration. And that is what this document is all about.
I also wish to note that the purpose of the facility is to expand coverage of shock-responsive safety net support for the poor and vulnerable Nigerians and to help them cope with the cost of meeting basic needs.
Service chiefs appointed by President Bola Tinubu have passed the screening of the Senate as a requirement for the confirmation of their appointments. They were subjected to rounds of questioning and interrogation by the lawmakers who are curious to know the strategy that will be used to tackle insecurity and other threats to national security.
I've interacted and socialized with my fellow citizens since the rigors of war, visited the injured in hospital and delivered condolences to the loved ones for those who have paid the supreme price for our country. My experiences as a military officer shaped my unshakable faith in our country, the unlimited power in its unity and greatness of its people. My belief in country equally informed my participation in rebranding of Nigerian project in 2009, where my submission came in second.
Upon my nomination as the Chief of Army Staff, conceptualize my philosophy of command as to transform the Nigerian Army into a force that is well-trained, equipped, and highly motivated towards discharging our constitutional responsibility. To achieve this, I've identified some pillars upon which my philosophy will rest.
After my training at the NDA, I have attended several military and academic courses over the years, commensurate with my career. Specifically, I've attended both the junior staff course and the senior staff course at the Armed Forces Command and Staff College, Jaji. I also attended the hydrographic course in India, and I attended the National Defense College course in Abuja for the strategic level course.
Initial evaluation of our current capabilities clearly depicts a Nigerian Air Force with substantial but largely untapped strengths amid some vulnerabilities. It is therefore imperative that we devise strategies to leverage on our strengths and enhance operational output.
Will the Senate approve the nomination of Major General T.A. Lagbaja as Chief of Army Staff? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Joining me live in the studio is Senator Mohammed Moguno from Borno State to give us a broader perspective to the confirmation of service chiefs. It's good to have you on the program, sir.
It's a pleasure meeting you.
Lawmakers had quite a very busy week this week, and one of the tasks that stood out for lawmakers is the confirmation of service chiefs. Tell us how well that screening went, and how well did the service chiefs perform, and how well did they prove themselves to prove to the lawmakers that they understand the task that is before them?
Well, the service chiefs nominated for confirmation by Mr. President are people that are well known in the discharge of their professional duties, particularly for me as a person. They deserve the appointment because both the Chief of Defense Staff and the Chief of Army Staff are people that are personally known to me, having come from a theater of war that has been ravaged by the Boko Haram insurgency. The Chief of Defense Staff was the commander of Operation Hiding Kai, and he has performed tremendously in the course of the discharge of his duties that saw to the return of people that were hitherto displaced as a result of the Boko Haram insurgency to their ancestral homes. And also the Chief of Army Staff also served in my hometown of Moguno as a commander. And in the course of the discharge of his duties, he has really shown his professional mastery in the discharge of his duties. So they are all square pegs in square holes. They have track record of performance in the discharge of their professional duties. And if you go through the resume, the curriculum vitae, you will see clearly that on several occasions held command, instructional, and other appointments that have really prepared them to the task.
You seem to be very knowledgeable about these service chiefs. What do you expect for them to do differently this time around? And what kind of legislative backing are we expecting to see from the Senate to help these service chiefs, perform their tasks as expected?
Well, what we are expecting them to do, for example, particularly from where I came from, what I expect them to do is to consolidate on the achievements made so far, to dominate the theater, because the Boko Haram has been greatly degraded in the northeast now, and people have returned back to their respective communities. Socio-economic activities have picked up. So what I'm expecting from them is to dominate the theater of war, so that there is no going to be any resurgence or coming back of all these Boko Haram elements to attack the communities. As also with regard to the issue of banditry in the Northwest, I think they should redouble their effort towards fighting this bandit to a standstill, just the way they did in the Northeast, but by involving both the kinetic and the non-kinetic approach in the fight against the bandits, so that eventually they will succeed. Then with regard to the issue of the legislative backing that the Senate will give them, one, by virtue of the fact that the legislature is vested with the power of appropriation, we will do everything possible through the instrumentality of the Appropriation Act to provide them with all the wherewithal that will strengthen them to fight, whether it is Boko Haram or banditry, just to discharge their constitutional mandate.
Another significant legislative assignment we witness is the approval of funds for the federal government to cushion the effect felt by the removal of fuel subsidy. The federal government has started the process of providing these funds. I also understand that you have been one of the members on the floor, championing this cause for, federal government to provide the means to cushion the harsh effects already being felt. But already the opposition party has described this as a brazen attempt, to divert funds as witnessed in the past. How would you advise the federal government to avoid mistakes of the past?
Well, I commend the executive arm of government for coming off with a palliative to the tune of 500 billion naira. Because of the removal of fuel subsidy, it has unleashed a lot of hardship on the lives of Nigerians because of the multiplier effect, the increase in the price of PMS has generated. So there is a need to come up with palliatives to cushion that effect, to give succor to Nigerians. And the executive arm of government has done so in the right direction by bringing it to Parliament, for which Parliament has approved. I don't want to subscribe to the idea that these monies are going to be diverted or is not going to impact positively on the lives of Nigerians as being alleged by the opposition. For example, about 12 million families are going to benefit 8,000 naira per month for 6 months. And these 12 million families are going to be people that are at the bottom of the ladder.
A lot of people are worried about how this distribution is going to be made. If you recall, during this week, there's a matter currently before lawmakers and senators of distribution of funds that came up on the floor. So that is another issue that is a cause of concern for many people. How is this funds going to be distributed?
There's no cause for concern in the sense that even the spokesman to Mr. President has come out to clearly say that these funds are going to be distributed digitally. That means the beneficiaries have their account for which these monies are going to be credited to the account. So it's something that is going to be done transparently, and it can be traced at any given point in time. It can be traced.
So what's the selection process like? Is there going to be like an application, or this data is just made available to the federal government already, and they know who
there is already a data that has been generated by the government of this category of people. It is in the custody of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. So it is through this data that they will identify the individuals which I will describe as the poorest of the poor, of which they will identify them and then credit their respective accounts with this monies.
Take a short breather now. Don't go anywhere. There's more after this break. Stay with us.
The National Assembly is a busy place. As the bastion of democracy, it is a place where bills are presented, motions debated, laws made, and the yearnings of the people are laid bare. Come with us as we take you through the workings of the National Assembly. We take you through plenary, committee meetings, and probes, all to ensure smooth working of the democratic process.
Glad to have you back. If you are just joining us, we have been speaking with Senator Tahir Moguno, and we have been speaking about the developments this week in the National Assembly. Moving ahead now, distinguished, tell us what are lawmakers saying about the expectations of Mr. President's ministerial list? Is there some sort of impatience among lawmakers? Are lawmakers getting impatient?
No, we are not getting impatient because Mr. President is still within his constitutional limit as to the time when he's supposed to present the ministerial nominees to the Senate. So we are patiently waiting because it's still within the constitutional limit allowed by Mr. President to submit the names. There are a lot of speculations in the media as to who made the list, and we are not going to speculate until when we see the list. And Mr. President, being a person that is a good hunter of talents, as exhibited while he was governor of Lagos State, I think he will still keep that tradition of hunting for talents that will assist his administration in the delivery of dividends of democracy to the doorsteps of Nigerians. And we also expect Mr. President, keeping with his tradition of putting square pegs in square holes, so that they will discharge the functions of their office with the background of knowledge, armed with all the professional capacity to discharge the function of the office for which they were nominated.
So for what you're saying now, we won't see the common take a bow and go like we usually see. We are going to see like a very good grilling of this.
Well, yes, definitely this Senate, as the Senate President has always said, is going to be an uncommon Senate. Well, with regard to the tradition of bow and go, I think it is mainly extended to members of the national, former members of the National Assembly, whether a member of the House of Rep or the Senate. I think that tradition maybe sustained, maybe will be sustained, maybe because of the respect that is going to be accorded to former members of the National Assembly. But all other nominees are going to be subjected to thorough scrutiny to determine whether they are fit to discharge the functions of that office, because Nigerians have a lot of expectation on this government to bring succor to their life, to transform the living standards of Nigerians, to bridge our infrastructure gap and what have you. So because of that, definitely the nominees are going to be subjected to thorough scrutiny by the Senate.
Okay, for you as a lawmaker representing people of Borno State, what will be your legislative agenda? What kind of legislations should we expect you to bring to the floor of the Senate, to project the minds of your people?
Well, definitely as a representative of a people, all your aspirations are supposed to be in consonance with the wishes of your people, as rightly alluded to by your question. My primary objective is an area of legislative concern is to revamp agriculture in my constituency, which is going to be multifaceted in the sense that in order to revamp agriculture, being the mainstay of the economy of my people, is to, one, ensure that there is security security is of primacy for any environment to function well. So in that regard, I will champion all bills that is going to secure the lives of Nigerians, and that is the primary purpose of government, the security and welfare of the people. Having regard to the fact that my constituency has been ravaged by the Boko Haram insurgency, and then two, all our roads in my constituency and Borno State as a whole, they are in a deplorable state. So there is a need for reconstruction of our roads so that farm produce are going to be evacuated to the cities. Then we have serious problem of water supply because of the arid nature of my constituency. So, and because of that, I'm going to give emphasis to the issue of provision of potable water supply across the nooks and crannies of my constituency.
All right, on a final note, we've seen the high turnover of lawmakers. There are new lawmakers now in the National Assembly, and the worry for a lot of people is how fast these new lawmakers can catch up with the workings of the National Assembly, and especially during plenary, we've seen how lawmakers struggle to, get accustomed to what is applicable in the chamber. How fast would you say are these new lawmakers catching up?
Well, yes, as rightly pointed out by you, there is a very high turnover of legislators each year, each time we have an election, about 70 to 75%. And this is peculiar to the Nigerian society, whereby the office of the lawmaker, whether a federal constituency or a senatorial district, is being rotated amongst local governments, and sometimes it has even cascaded down to rotation among various communities and clans. So after one term, this community will clamor that this is his turn, then after another term. So the Nigerian legislature is deprived of the requisite capacity and then the requisite wherewithal to discharge the functions of their office. Because each and every election season we have new crop of legislators. Well, my advice as a fifth term member, as a sixth term member now in the National Assembly, 5 terms in the House and then now 1 term in the Senate. My advice to new legislators is to first sit down and learn the rudiments of legislation by understanding what their senior colleagues are doing. It's not enough for you to just come one day and then try to sponsor a bill or sit down for the first at least 2-3 months. Sit down and study the process of legislation as being done by your senior colleagues before you now come up with your motion or come up with your legislation. And then that is why the Center for Democratic Studies organizes all these courses and what have you before our inauguration, with a view to us exposing lawmakers to the nitty-gritty and nuances of legislation. So some people, pick fast, while some people are very slow in learning. But generally, my advice is for them to sit down and then study from their senior colleagues the process as well as the nitty-gritty of legislation before they start sponsoring their bills or their motions on the floor of the legislature.
We appreciate your contributions on the program today, but I'm afraid that's where we have to leave it today. Thank you very much for your time, Senator Moguno.
Thank you very much.
We will take a quick break. When we return, I will tell you other matters arising in the House of Representatives. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. Glad to have you back. The House of Representatives have agreed to set up a committee that will closely monitor and scrutinize the process for the disbursement of 500 billion naira worth of palliatives to cushion the impact of subsidy removal. The representatives commended the President Bola Tinubu for considering the provisions of the palliatives, but they also warned that the mistakes of the past must be avoided.
Government obviously has done its job, studied the situation, and come to the conclusion that there was a need to respond to Nigerians so that we can not solve all the problems in one full swoop, but provide some support to men, women, families, communities, and constituencies so that they can weather the difficult terrain that we find ourselves in today.
One, I commend this. I think we should set up a committee, an ad hoc committee, to recommend the implementation of the palliatives and how these palliatives should be utilized by government.
The violence and killings in Zamfara State has gotten the attention of the House of Representatives following a motion brought by Representative Kabiru Amadu from Zamfara State. The lawmakers called on security agencies to apprehend all perpetrators of this crime and restore peace to the troubled communities.
Recalls that Section 14(2)(b) of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999 as amended, provides that the security and the welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. Note that Zamfara State has become one of the worst hit states of the Federation with respect of spate of killings, maiming, and all forms of destruction, which has lasted for over a decade. Mr. Speaker recalls that Gusau local government, which is the capital of Zamfara State, is not also spared in this manner. Just last week, gunmen who are now basically referred to as bandits stormed student off-campus residences in Sabongeda area where they took away 5 students of Federal University Gusau FUG. Up till this moment, the students are in captivity as the bandits are demanding millions of naira as ransom.
That is all we have on the program this week. Thank you for being a part of it. Do remember you can see this episode again on TVC News YouTube channel. Do not forget to subscribe, like, and share. Also watch a repeat broadcast on Sunday, 7 a.m. Thank you for watching. I am Tijesu Adeoye. See you next time.